right. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Glad to be back. I've actually been busy as a beaver, as they say, since the holiday break, which, man, it ends so abruptly. I don't know, depending where you guys are, but, my daughter was already back at school yesterday. So her break felt felt very swift, which I guess is a good thing. Back to the books. But hopefully everybody's had a great and refreshing holiday or couple of holidays, however that works out. Yeah, I thought we would talk. And hey, Brian Smith. Hey, Terrence. Hey, Gashrin. Oh, and Terrence, thanks for the plug I just saw on, was it Blue Sky for the thing? So I thought we could talk about Lore24. I'm always, I mean, last year, a little bit late, I guess, since I think we started talking about when Dungeon23 was coming up. I think we were talking about it in December, if I want to say, because I think I put out my helper stuff, and it was in December, pre-January. So I'm kind of almost feel like a little bit late with this one. There were a few. I mean, I'm sure there's ongoing different competing. I don't want to say competing is not the right word. There are some different kinds of, what do we call these things? That's the other thing. It's not really a competition. It's not really a contest. It's sort of a social motivational exercise. Shall we call it that? If you're not familiar, last year, challenge. Hey, Ian says challenge. That might be a good word. It's something kind of motivate you. Last year with Dungeon23, there have been other ones. If you've ever done a Sword Timber or NaNoWriMo, they work on similar principles. I want to say that Dungeon23 was different in that it wasn't a month. So NaNoWriMo is during November, Sword Timber is during September. If there's something that set Dungeon23 apart, I guess if we want to say that, is that it was, well, one, I think it was very definitely tabletop gaming centric. Sword Timber, I think, is as much about the art. Maybe it's even really more about the art part, drawing swords, and then people kind of take it and do gaming related stuff with it. But theoretically, Sword Timber, which is just different swords over the month of September, isn't really by its nature tabletop gaming. Obviously, if you're playing tabletop role-playing games, particularly fantasy games, as my chair sinks beneath me, then something like Sword Timber will be very useful to you. And I've done bits of Sword Timber and things like that, but it wasn't really made for that. So Dungeon23 definitely was made first and foremost as an exercise for developing tabletop gaming stuff. And then the second part taking place over an entire year, which would be very daunting. Hey, Magnus. Right, Smith says, stretch goals for life. Pretty much. Oh, and Terrence is hauling dialysis patients. That sounds like a lot of fun. Not really, but anyhow, good luck with that, Terrence. So Dungeon23 over the course of a year, and different structures and various things came up, but it was essentially I guess the original idea was essentially, hey, write a room of a dungeon one day, and then at the end of the year, you'll have essentially a mega dungeon with 365 rooms. And then I think people looked at some different approaches. I kind of came up with an approach that I threw out on itch. It's still there, and I think it's still good. And I think a lot of the materials, the Dungeon23 stuff and procedures, be really good whether you want to do a whole year doing a dungeon or not. But that was all Dungeon23. Hey, Ty, welcome aboard. But now we're into 2024, and there were some competing ideas for 2024. The one I kind of latched onto, as you can see here, if you see on screen, this is the mega thread that I made on my forums.hexed.press, if you feel like coming in and checking it out. And there's links to it in a bunch of places. Lore24. And what drew me towards Lore24 over, I mean, you would have thought like, ooh, there was one called Hexplore24, which in the name I liked a lot. But the emphasis on that one seemed to be more about solo play. And it's not that I don't want to do solo play, because I do, and I plan to do some this year on the channel. But in terms of that being the kind of everyday focus, wasn't really for me. And I think there's some other ones. I think there's one that's like Galaxy 24, I think I saw. So it's definitely, if you're into sci-fi rather than fantasy and you want to do something different, check it out. I wish there was some way of a directory of all the hashtag insert something 24s, because I don't know how you would track these down if you don't know the keyword. But maybe someone's got a bunch of these, but they're kind of motivational. And the bottom line, regardless of whichever one you choose to do, is really, and this is something that kind of got clarified in the first couple months last year as people were grappling with the implications of Dungeon23 and how to tackle it. Really, the whole idea is a way for you to channel some of your creativity to doing a little bit of work every day on something. And in this case, they were focusing kind of on the dungeon, but I think ultimately it didn't really matter. None of this stuff really matters. It's really a matter of, hey, do you have something that motivates you to work on? We all have gaming projects, especially if you're a GM type. There's always stuff you can prep or do. And all of these things are basically like, hey, why don't you just work a little bit on it every day? And then if you could do that and be disciplined and maybe a little bit lucky, then you come to the end of the year, you'll come back to January in 2025 and you go, my gosh, look at all the stuff that I've done. And I think what I like about it, and I didn't really do Dungeon23 last year, but what I appreciated about the concept was that it's about putting in the work, which I think is something that is important. It's something that really gets overlooked a lot. People have big ideas about stuff, but it's the work that's going to take that idea and turn it into something concrete that you can use. And these challenges kind of focus on the work. So I guess that's kind of my short story made extremely long. That's sort of what all these different hashtag insert something 24s or 23s, if you saw last year's, was kind of what they were about. Magnus says they might do a modified Dungeon24, but rather than one huge mega dungeon, they'll do one or two a month, have some small, medium ones to scatter around their current map. Yep, a lot of folks did that too. Magnus last year said, I'm not going to do one giant mega dungeon, but I'm going to do 12 small dungeons or 24 tinier dungeons, or not all kind of even numbers. But people definitely did that last year. I think if you're interested in the dungeon aspect, at this point, you'll be able to probably go back and throw in the search engine, hashtag Dungeon23 or just Dungeon23, and see all the different stuff that people put together in terms of advice and just potential helpers and aids to kind of do that kind of stuff. Brian Smith says that they're riding the wave of motivation to clean up existing world building notes that they have floating around and sprinkling some randomly prompted stuff. Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. So one of the things going to be interesting with Lore24 is I think it's definitely, and I'll go and read where I think is kind of the foundational Lore24 doc in a second. We'll go and give that a read. But yeah, I think that's a big thing with all these challenges, but I think particularly this one is you're not necessarily tied to doing something new. I think, and we'll go read it in a minute, where the talk about, hey, work on stuff you already have. You need to polish stuff in, rewrite it, edit it, tweak it. Like all that counts, right? I'm curious about Lore24 in that Dungeon23 had even in its most primitive form, kind of had just a little bit of structure to help, right? Do a room of a dungeon. So you kind of knew where to start and stop. Now, obviously, what consists of a room of a dungeon is up to your interpretation. Some folks that could mean a lot. Some folks that can mean a little, but there's kind of built in there sort of this box. It's a room. Lore24 doesn't really have that out of the box. And I've noticed on the forums, and we'll go through and we'll take a look. Some people are posting, Terrence, Brian Smith's on there, Dungeon Master classes on there. I'm on there posting stuff. You can see that people are starting hot with putting a lot of content out there, which is awesome. But I hope that it won't lead to kind of burnout down the road, because you can kind of set this bar for yourself that can be really high. I'm doing this whole thing on day one, and then on day two, I feel like I got this whole thing, but then you're on day 17 and you may be looking back at your notes and going, I can't do a whole page anymore. Does that dissuade you when you only have half a page or just a couple sentences? I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. You just want to get something down. So hopefully folks are starting out super hot, can kind of maintain it, or at least maybe get off the boil a little bit, get down to a simmer, maybe just a little bubbles, but then like carry on through. I'm trying to be a bit more, I'm not trying to come in and just, I'm trying to look at it like a marathon, or I'm trying to be kind of atomic. We'll take a look. There's no right way to do it, right? But you just want to find, it's like running a marathon or any kind of long distance race. You just want to find that pace that's going to see you through the whole thing. And like I said, unlike Dungeon23, that kind of gave you a natural sort of boundaries, here with this Lore24, you kind of got to make your own a bit. Well, we'll see. But so far, obviously, it's fresh fresh days. So everybody's into it and running in hard. We'll see who's still standing. I know, and myself included. Get to the summertime. I want to try to keep maybe every week do something on here on the channel, like a weekly thing for myself that'll help keep me going. And I feel like some of the stuff that people posted already, like Terrence and Brian, they've like posted a week's worth, I feel like, of Lore24's already, the amount of material they've put in. Pretty much everybody but me. I feel like I'm coming in light. But like I said, I don't want to compare I feel like that's the other thing is I don't want to look at what, like that happened with Dungeon23 too. Some people are making these beautiful maps. Other people going like, oh, like, what am I doing here? Like mine doesn't look as good as theirs. And it doesn't matter. You want to get your work out for you. Agnes says 1 page a day is pretty manageable. I mean, I guess it depends on the page and how big you write, whatever. I just wouldn't want to put any, for myself, I just don't want to put any, I wouldn't want to put any boundaries on it. I don't say I must get to a page because maybe I just don't have it that day. And I can come back tomorrow and I'll be refreshed and I'll have a page and a half and then I can fill it in or not. I just want to, I feel like I just want to get something done. Right. I want to feel like I put something down. And if you look at mine, like all mine, I think all the things I've done in 3 days so far could probably fit on a page, again, depending on page size and how am I writing it longhand or how small type I'm using. A lot of variability there. Weiss says they have a lot of stuff already. Oh yeah. And so he says that meeting it out properly is the challenge. Yep. That's definitely going to be a challenge. Ty says they're going to gamify it. Theirs. Randomize what they create, probably only work on it once a week as opposed to a day. Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's really the important thing about all these isn't even really the daily part, though I think it's nice. I think it's good to get into a daily habit. When you look at people, writers and things, they talk about building these kind of habits and having a daily thing. But if your cadence it's a week, then you can do that then a week, or you're doing other stuff, and then on day 7, Sunday, Monday, whenever you put it down, like it's cool. Like you want to find that rhythm. Kind of about finding and maintaining that rhythm of creativity. Terrence says they're remixing bits from various homebrew settings into a core, so that is already pre-brainstormed. Well, that's helpful as well. Brian Smith says, here's an idea we could do as a community. I'll post this one up. Roll on the prompt, and I'll get to my prompts that I put up at the beginning of the week, and we can all post. Oh, you know what? I can do that too. That's a good idea. I mean, not that you have to use it, but I'll probably roll up. I made a prompt thing, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But we could basically have that as kind of a weekly prompt. I think that's good. And I think also I could just do it on the Mondays, something like that. Like on the Mondays, we'll do the prompt for the week and it will be in this mega thread. I'll do that. So I'll plan that out for the Mondays. Ian says it's like dieting. You can't beat yourself up. You screw up a day, but you can't just give up and let it demotivate you. Right. And you also don't want to look at other people are doing in that way either. Right. Somebody loses a bunch of weight and you're like, oh, like, are they, what's wrong with me? Right. It's like, doesn't matter. Everyone's on their own journey. I love reading it and sharing it, and everybody, I got a bunch of folks participating so far. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, including myself, 5 folks participating here. And again, if you're watching this and you want to participate, come to the forums.hexed.press. You're welcome. I'll add you to your thread to the thing. And you can do that. I do have to approve users manual. I'm still doing manual approving, so it might be a slight delay, but everyone is welcome. But we're each running our own race. As Brian Smith says, have some grace with yourself. Absolutely. And then Ty says, dude's out there writing Forgotten Realms in 3 months. Yeah, I mean, and some folks can do that, right? Just, and it's done. But a lot of us can't do that. And you don't want to feel like it's either that or, you're a bust. Okay, so I have a bunch of links in here in the mega thread, but this one is who kind of threw this out there first. Initially, it's from Spriggan's Den. There's a link to it in the mega thread. It's from December 10th, called Lore24. So let's just, it's good to read through. Obviously, this is it's just somebody's idea. Like, you don't have to stick to this, right? It's kind of nice to see, like, well, what was the thing? But I feel like that was the other thing that part of the thing with Dungeon23 is people are looking at this kind of like it's a biblical, it was brought down and carved into stone from the gods to, Moses-like character, right? So you have to take it as it is. And it's like, no, it's just one person and it's their thing, right? But it's good to kind of see an idea what they're talking about. So here's what Spriggan's Den had to say. Now only 3 more weeks. All right, I'll skip the part where he's saying it's almost 2024 because we're already there. I think most people in the DIY RPG space are familiar with Dungeon23, the big project to write up one room for a big mega dungeon every day for all of 2023. While it was hugely popular, at least on Mastodon, in January and February, coming up with a whole new dungeon room every day was a mighty ambitious plan. A few people seem to have made it nearly all the way to the end now, but most have dropped out long ago. And I heard from several other people that they also never started with it because the whole thing just seemed just too big from the start. A few weeks back, we had some conversations on Mastodon about doing something similar in 2024, but for world building on a campaign setting instead of rooms for a mega dungeon. The whole idea is fairly simple and straightforward. Here we get some bullet points. Come up with a general concept for a new campaign setting, or take any setting you've already done some work on and want to expand upon. For every day in 2024, write up a description of one thing that exists in that world. It could be a place, a creature, a spell, a character, an item, a deity, an event, or whatever you can think of. The purpose of it all is to practice turning vague ideas in your mind into concrete words that can be shared with other people. The entry of the day should, of course, be something that you've written up on that day, but the idea that you're describing does not necessarily have to be a completely new one. It can just as well be an old idea that you never got to properly put into words before. I forgot to put a spell. I'll have to update one of my category thing to get the spell, because that's a good idea. Okay, the entry of the day could take any length or format. Could be as short as a post on Mastodon, or a full-page description with stats for your game system of choice, or anything in between. And here's where I would say some of the danger may lie, right? Because it can be kind of anything. And some of these, okay, going back to Dungeon23, all right, a room in a dungeon can be many things. It can be large, it can be small, it can be complicated, it can be simple, but it's got these kind of natural bounds that help it. However, in Lore24, when it can be a place, a creature, a spell, a character, an item, a deity, an event, whatever, those aren't things of a even close of the same size. Maybe you write up an item, it's just 3 lines, but when you're coming up with a creature, that's going to take a lot more space in that. So automatically we're taking somewhat of a constrained bounds and kind of blowing them up a little bit. And now we're saying, hey, look, don't worry about how long it is. So now even then you're kind of blowing out even further. So I would recommend, this is just me talking here, maybe putting a little bounds on it. Maybe roughly, say Magnus was like, hey, a page, I can do a page. Okay, well then make a page, again, whatever size page is, make that like your max. And if it doesn't fit on the page, then maybe take a smaller piece of that and make that the day, and then come back to it on the next day and do another one, right? Break it up. I'm trying to be fairly atomic. In other words, I'm trying to pick kind of modular pieces, and you'll see mine in a minute. I'm not trying to pull out mine like, look at my model of success. I'm simply knowing myself, but we just have to remember, because it's so wide open, in other words, and sort of what we're doing, what we can cover, anything, right? Thing. Now we're supposed to kind of pick a thing, but sometimes, hey, you think of a deity. Okay, well now I'm thinking of the deity. Then I want to think about, well, where they worship this deity and how do they work? Right. Okay, so maybe I think, oh, you know what? The deity is just day one. Let me just write up him. It's Odin, and he's got an eye. He gave up one eye for wisdom, and he sits up there and he can launch thunderbolts. No, it's Zeus. Does Odin have thunderbolts? I don't know. He's got a spear, whatever. He's got that horse with eight legs, whatever it is. But you know what? I'm not going to get into the Valkyries or something, even though they're related to Zeus. I'm going to put, or Zeus related to Odin or whatever. I'm going to put those aside, or I'm going to put his kids aside. I'm going to put worship practice aside, or runes aside. I'm going to put all that stuff, and I'll come back to that and do it another one. But you kind of have to be disciplined for yourself, because there's nothing even here, even in the kind of vaguish sense of the Dungeon23 model of saying like, hey, you should stop, right? There's no, you should stop at a room. You got to stop with that person, but it's easy in our brains to think, well, this person, I need to know all this other stuff for this person, and therefore my name can go out. Because that can, while it can be great to say, ooh, I can just inspired and just write, it can also come back, that can rebound on you when you feel like you can't do all that stuff. And you feel like, well, I can't do a person because I don't have the energy or the inspiration or the ideas for all these other various elements. Whereas maybe just look at the person, just look at like their physical bits. Don't worry about their faction they're in or spells they have, or just like write down the person parts. And then you can come back and work on other stuff, and that becomes a day. And then, a day and a day and a day. I feel like there's enough days in the year, and you can always come back and flesh it out and maybe come back to it. But that's just kind of my 2 bits. Terrence said that I see the guy who tried to do Dungeon23 in a 10-hour live stream. I heard about it. It was actually, I would, if I had a day, I might have tried something like that just for fun. Not necessarily going to do 365 rooms, just because it would have been a fun thing to do for if I had a marathon live stream session. But yeah, it's just kind of funny. Like, oh, I skipped it on the whole year. Let's see if I can do it in a day. I'd be curious to see what techniques. There are probably some interesting things that they did in terms of how they went about it that might be useful. It's kind of a nice thing when you look at someone who's trying to do something like that. It not so much maybe what they came up with. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I have no idea. But there might be some good, like, well, they really had to cut corners and save time. How did they do that? Maybe we could use those same techniques, but not in the scrambling at the last second kind of thing. Okay. And so so he's just laying out what he sees as the goals, or they see as the goals. One is that their experience. Ideas become much more concrete and real once you put them in the words. That's true. And then it's simply shared world building. Yep. Also true. And then, of course, there's a hashtag Lore24 that's already floating around Mastodon and also Twitter and elsewhere. Kinda says that they watched it and there's some really fun stuff. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I do need to check it out. I mean, I'm not going to watch 10 hours of the streaming, but I'm wondering if maybe someone will pull out some highlights, or if I look in the comments, there'll be some like, go to this timestamp to see something fun. But I'd be curious, maybe at the beginning, just to see, well, what are his tools to kind of tackle that, because tools are good. So that's from Spriggan's Den. We also have this from Wombat's Gaming Den of Iniquity. Again, it's linked from the mega thread, if you're curious. Maybe the only thing here is just that he made a nice logo. So if you want to use a logo to stick somewhere, probably more for the end. I imagine if you have, so I'll get to that. Well, I'll get there in a minute. So if you end up with something, I guess you want to throw on your blog, or you want to publish on itch, this will probably come in handy. It's not, obviously it's not something that you need if you're just working on stuff, but there is a logo, and I don't think there's anything else. I mean, it's not bad. I think it's just restating stuff we already have. I came up with this. I know the page is wonderful. This is on itch. Again, I posted it to the mega thread. Everything I'm looking at has been posted to the mega thread. Maybe I should just stop saying that over and over again. I call this, I'm going to put more stuff here. So I made a Dungeon23 helper. So I'm calling this the Lore24 helper. Right now, it's just a single page of this, which I actually don't have on my computer. I took the one, I actually first posted it in the mega thread down here. I added another column. I zoom in there. I added another column for colors, just so I thought colors were nice, but then I forgot about kind of a category type thing. So basically, you don't need to use this, but I liked, I think it was Brian Smith's idea of rolling on this kind of every week for sort of a weekly shared prompt for folks to use. And I'll roll one today. Maybe we can roll one. Actually, why don't we just roll one? Let's roll one. I don't know why I put the glasses in my mouth. That's a bad habit. I roll one, but I forgot. I put these as events, but I think I need a spell. Let me edit this. So I'll call this number 4. Event, current or historical. And let's see, I'll copy this out. Copy, close that. Put that there, and then, oops. Spell or ritual. There we go. So now I've got, okay, so let's roll. We'll roll, then I'll add it to the list. Let's get some dice going. All right, I'm using D6s. Well, I moved things around and alerted my cat. Sorry, Bruce. Sorry, Bruce. Just make a note here. Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, these are not, these are just to I'm sure, and there is a way to make. Somebody posted a thing for making kind of an automated kind of thing. I'll have to link to it. I did. I can't remember what it was called, but it was one that was an online system. He has it on itch. It's basically I think it's using local storage and JavaScript to do something with creating kind of prompts for yourself. But I just went old school because it's easy. All right, let's. This is good. Excuse me. Okay, so I need a few sixes. Do I have another? I don't like this one. I want to use the 6 that I like. Okay, I got enough 6s. All right, so let's do category. Category is, I got a 3. All right, so this is an abbreviated week. This week's group prompt. So first for I got 3. So a thing. And now I'm just going to roll all 3. It's funny. I actually I only have the image on here because I was working on it on my iPad. What's it called? Affinity has their publisher apps on for iOS. They're actually pretty good. So I've been using that. So first subject. Oh, I only need 2 dice. Sorry about that. I'll take 65. 65 is a seer or medium. Seer or medium thing. Seer or medium. Next, 54. Oops. 54 is I need a roseate, which I think is a kind of a brownish color, I think. I was kind of trying to pick colors. I was looking up, trying to find kind of what I thought were, kind of, I don't know, literary, and then 31 sort of evocative, and then the descriptor, victorious. All right. I'll just bold these. Oh, whoops. I'll just put a slash in there. Slash. So it's a thing, something to do with a seer or medium, the color roseate, and there we go. And victorious. Yeah. And that's basically, that's kind of what that thing is for. And you don't have to roll that many. You just want to roll the subject, that works. You just want a color and descriptor, that works. It's kind of meant to just sort of, it's just there for your inspirational purposes. So use it however you want to do it. It's it's basically free. Just you can name your own price. Name your price. Which you can put 0. It's fine. And there it is. And then I did do, just to close this part out, I did do I set up a game jam. Obviously, it's beautiful right now, which you have a year to submit stuff. So no rush. No rush. No rush, but if you want to throw stuff in there, I don't know if anyone's going to use this. I will probably throw stuff in there. I'm not sure if I'm going to try to bundle. I feel like because I'm going to be mostly fleshing out kind of hexes or regions of hexes, that it might make sense I could put together like a little package of a particular little region or area and push that out. But that's kind of like if you're gonna put stuff on itch, obviously you don't have to. There's no requirement there. But that is in terms, and I will copy this so I can add it to the mega thread. top of the mega thread. Let's see, where should I put it? I'll put it at the bottom. And we'll call this weekly prompts. Week 1. I could get rid of that other stuff. There we go. And there we have it. So if you want to use that prompt, you're welcome to it. Obviously, you can grab the thing and make your own. I'm sure there'll be other prompts and things will come out. I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen more already, but maybe I just haven't looked. Unknown. So now I thought what you could do, and of course, you guys, if you guys have anything, anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to. But I thought in the meantime, we could look at some of the folks, some of the things we've done. I'll start with Dungeon Master Masterclass because he was the first one to kind of get on the ball. So he got a lot. So he actually kind of he started with Lore24 -4. I really like these. So, you know, he's got, and I don't know if there's I don't know the methodology. Let's see, how long has this been going? It says Horga. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that terribly. It just started. All right. So technically it started, it's like Dungeon23. This is Lore24. So literally January 1st was your first official day of Lore24, and your last day will be December 31st of the end of the year. Oh, I see. About the stream has been going on for about a half hour. half an hour for that part of it. Sorry, I wasn't sure whether you're talking about the Lore24 or the stream. Ty, you should share your work somewhere, or maybe I've seen it and I don't know, but I'd be curious to see it. I'm always happy to see stuff. So Dungeon Master Masterclass starting, I don't know if that's the 27th, whatever day. Anyway, he started -4, getting some kind of people together. Ignimius the Divine Emperor, -75 to 24,000. I don't know how that's a long-lived person, I'm guessing. Brian Smith says, thoughts on finding a line between fiction novel and gameable lore? Yeah, I think so. Brian Smith asks, and this is kind of what I was speaking to before. Everyone's going to be find their own spot, right? Well, let me put my what's it like? Put my money where my mouth is. So here's where's mine? And there's my thread. So these are kind of what I got. Okay, that's just nuts. So I start off with this. Jorge asks, is it something your players can do? Can they interface with it? Well, I think it's also ideally, Jorge, it's all going to be gameable material, right? So I think that it's like any kind of world building exercise. It's going to kind of be on you, right? That you as the GM. And sorry, I need to take a swig of. It's the new year, but I'm still on the Spindrift, waiting for that sponsorship, Spindrift, whenever you're ready. Blood orange tangerine Spindrift for the working man. There's always that line with world building, okay? Not trying to say you shouldn't do it. Of course you should, but there's that kind of that point where you come to where it's for you as opposed to your players, and that's kind of going to be up to you as an individual to do with it. I'm sure a lot of folks are going to be writing out materials that are mostly for them. Players may never see it. Not to say that it's not useful, because as you are coming up with the stuff, maybe it bleeds into the fiction in different ways. Maybe it affects your thinking and events, whatever. But there's something that's going to be definitely like, hey, no one's seeing this but me. And that's fine. I'm going to try to concentrate as much as I can on stuff that I think is actually going to get out there into the game. That's kind of my approach. I try, and I actually find I like it better when I don't have tons of stuff. I like to know, the general thrust and flow of history is good. I like to know this stuff, but I don't necessarily need to get into all the intimate details because I think things will come up in the game and that will make me want to go, oh, that's how I want it to have been. And then I don't have to erase anything, or I don't block myself off as a possibility because no, 6 months ago I wrote it down and it was like this. Like I don't need that. But everyone's process is different. You certainly could have your players do it if you're playing the kind of game where you're doing a lot of shared world building. Absolutely, everybody could do it. But I think mostly that players are going to interact with this from the concept of, hey, I've created all this lore, and now you get to go play around in this world, and then I'll be able to use all this lore that I came up with. It's probably how most people are going to interact with it. But of course, the game is however you like to play it. Oh, no, nothing. Hey, no, nothing says that. Oh, okay. That's what it is. Okay, 2 ranges. I see. So nothing plays in this game. So he has first life, and then he was resurrected. Aha. Okay. So Ty says the worst part about being a lore hoarder is that their players rarely hear about it. They trampled over some of the best lore and items during one of the most epic encounters. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? And that's the nature of world building. We're doing some of it for the players and some of it for ourselves, and the lines are going to get blurry. I try not to pre-prep too much because then I think there are some dangers to overwriting, over prepping stuff. One, it's just not necessarily an efficient use of your time unless you just like world building, because some people love world building for their own thing, and that's great. Go to it. But what can happen is you write up all the stuff, and then you see this come up on forums, things all the time. Players trample on it. They ignore it. They whatever. And then you're feeling hurt. You're feeling like I'm creating all this stuff for you and you're not. But that's not really how it should be. So if you just want to do it for yourself and because you have fun doing it, great. But that you almost want to put that as a separate thing. And think about, okay, here's kind of gameable stuff. And then here's all this other stuff that I like. I'm trying to stick mostly to the gameable stuff. And because I just want to be efficient. I don't want to write myself into corners. And I don't want to, the other part of it is the more you're writing, the more you're becoming kind of involved in it. You can kind of create your own sort of sacred cows, things that you're going to feel like you want treated a certain way, that you're going to want to be in the story in a certain way. And I'm not about those kinds of stories. And I think also it can force things on your party that they may not want to, even if it's just the thing like, no, you're going to sit and hear my monologue on this historical moment because it's so meaningful to me as a person. I want you to hear it. And so I'm going to push that on you in the game, even though you don't care. But I feel like keeping it on that more surface level is going to be good for me. Yeah. Horga says world building as a hobby is for you. Yep. So, but that's, how much you want to do that. And for Lore24, that doesn't matter. Lore24 has nothing to say about any of that. You as an individual need to figure out where you want to be and then be disciplined in that as much as you can. If that means writing a bunch, great. If that means saying, nope, I'm going to write this bit and then stop. But again, right, you also just want to find that cadence. What do you feel comfortable doing every day? Magnus has a page, that he can do a page. I don't know if I can do a page every day. I don't know if I want to do a page every day. So I'm trying to be more, like I said, more kind of atomic. Terrence Horga said, no one cares about your calendar. And then Terrence said, X does. Yep. Calendars are good. I think they're good. I think get into them, but there's only a certain amount where some of that stuff matters. And I think if you want that stuff to matter, then you have to make it matter. Probably a whole other stream, whole other conversation about, hey, if you want stuff to matter, it should matter. But it just being there doesn't matter. You writing the story doesn't make it matter. And I think that's where folks get twisted when they're in the kind of world building GM mode. Just because you put hours writing it doesn't mean it should matter to me. If you want it to matter to me, then you got to make it matter to the story we're telling, not just kind of in the background, because I got other things to do. I'm worried about what's going on in the foreground. So why am I concerned about that? You want to make it matter, then build your stories around these things so that it's meaningful, and then I'll care. I think most people, if it's something that is meaningful to their present pursuit, will care. And I think that's how you kind of build up lore in the game. The first time you got to kill the guy who was the lich, and this lich was an old king, and you had to go find the stuff out to do whatever. Like then suddenly you kind of know the story of the old king. You don't know it. You didn't learn it just to learn it, but you learned it because it was helping you defeat that lich that you wanted to defeat, or whatever it is. Right. So anyhow, so this is mine. So I'm just kind of doing it. This is like a region. It's like a few hexes. And so the day one, I just kind of wrote out a blurb about kind of the hexes in general, then about basically this particular hex. And then I did write up a bit more about the settlement there. And I kind of stopped. And I actually could have gone further, but I'm like, nope, I'm going to stop. And then yesterday, these are the main kind of terrain types that are in these hexes. So I just kind of wrote them up quickly. So I got, heath, what I'm calling the fen side, which is basically where there's a giant kind of ocean-sized swamp that it borders. And so that's kind of the shoreline, essentially, that's there. And then there are these hills. And then I did that. And then today I wrote up one creature. I did write up a very abbreviated stat block. I'm calling it a bogworm. I'm trying to do dragons a little bit differently. So this would be kind of a green dragon-ish thing. I didn't actually write its colors. I actually think it's more of a modeled brown and green colors, what I have in my brain. So I probably should write that down. And then I just wrote up a little bit about that. I got 8 hit dice, breathes essentially the kind of chlorine gas, kind of poisonous, nasty thing, but cloud weapon. It's got a couple of claws and a bite attack. It speaks Draconic. It's got infravision, and it can see a bit invisibility to 60 feet, and it's got a couple of spells. And then I gave it a little bit of its habit. It likes to hunt during the dawn and dusk and use the fog as cover. And then I talk about how the people who live around there, it's a pretty sparsely populated area. They're only vaguely aware that the dragon is here. They might not even know exactly that's a dragon. They kind of know something's there. There's a thing there, but the dragon so far has been content to keep it that way, to sort of stay on the periphery of their consciousness, I guess, or observation. So that's me. That's it. 3 days. And I think I'm going to try to keep it to about this. These are close to the same. I mean, it's maybe not the same word count, but pretty close. I feel like that's a good thing for me. And if I got something here a little bit more, but if I had stopped it up here, I would have been fine if I had just stopped there and put this could have been a whole other day. I would have found that too. I feel like my approach is going to be fairly atomic, right? A thing, a place, a person. Like for here, I talk about who runs the place. I gave this guy a name, Edgarth IV. I thought about writing a whole bunch more about him, and then I stopped myself. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll do it on another day. I'll come back and write a person, and it'll be Edgarth IV, and then I'll do that. I'm going to quit right here. And, I when I got into this terrain, I thought, I could start doing wandering creature tables and things like that. And nope, not going to do it. I'm going to just write those up. I'll do wandering creature tables, maybe 1 per day for all those. And I'm just going to do this one creature here. I'm not going to do 20. I'm just going to do 1 and just kind of keep trucking around. That's my approach, But like I said, a lot of folks I'm kind of writing stuff that's more fresh for me. I'm not converting a bunch of stuff. I wanted to go back. So, Dungeon Master Masterclass has got, like I said, I think he's got this seems like a good manageable amount of work. Right now he's going around doing people. Stop. So he started off with, actually, no, sorry, he didn't just do people. So he's got the Emperor here. He's got another Emperor. And there now he has a couple of organizations, basically. And he's, the categorization stuff is nice too. I like that. So you've got, hey, it's the Emperor. It's another Emperor. Organization. Here we have some events. And now another event. And now a king, another person, and now a place or government or I don't know, whatever you want to call that. Orga says, if you want to note that there's some legendary age 3 ages ago, but if there's nothing from it which the players are ever going to see or interact with, then it's best not to spend too much time on it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is how much they're going to spend on it. But just keep in mind that I think it's not even just how much time they're spending on it, but look at it as like, how are they going to actively interact with that? It's not enough to just put it out there kind of in front of them. Well, hey, I want them to interact with it because they're going to have to move through it to get to the next bit. It's like, that's not it. you want them to interact with that something 3 ages ago, then it has to impact them actively now. Again, there's an ancient lich, and he's from that legendary age 3 ages ago, and so they got to find stuff to take down the lich, stuff that is also from that legendary age 3 ages ago. So now you're going into dungeons that were built during that legendary age 3 ages ago, and so all this stuff is building up. Then it's going to be part of something that they're going to be engaged with, because it understanding that legendary age helps them in what they're trying to do in the present. It's not just like, oh, look over there, it's this thing from a legendary age, and it's like, I don't care about that. I'm going over this other thing. Is this other thing from the legendary age? No. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't help me, right? You want to make it something that it's kind of like building a reward. But the reward isn't necessarily like an item or something like that. It's just information that's going to help them, things that can help them. They have goals, things that are either obstacles or ways to get around obstacles. You want to kind of, if you want them to interact with it. If you just wanted this kind of background, that can be fine too. But you could have some, but that can be, as Horga suggests, very abbreviated. You know, the classic example I think of is in Lord of the Rings. If you just read, say, Fellowship of the Ring, and keep in mind that if you read Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, you know, prior to the 70s, prior to Tolkien's death, there was no Silmarillion, there was no Unfinished Tales, there was no 8, 9, 10, however many books there are of extra material. There's just Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and they'll just say stuff and they'll throw it out there, like, oh, like, what's going on here? Like, oh, I'm calling out to Elbereth. Okay, you know, and that's it. And it's, you get to sit there and go, ooh, Elbereth. I wonder, like, what's the significance of that? And you'll get a little tidbit, but maybe you won't. Or, you know, I think the famous one, you know, Gandalf with the Balrog, confronting the Balrog on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and spouts out a bunch of stuff, and you have no idea what that stuff really means, you know, because you don't know, and he hasn't told you. He hasn't gone through and given us all that stuff. Like, oh, the flame of Arnor, and like, what is flame of Udun, and all like that sounds badass, but what does it mean? We don't know. We don't know. And in fact, you know, who knows, if Tolkien had lived, maybe we wouldn't know, because he wouldn't have published that stuff. So you can, you know, that's just a little bit of flavor. And obviously he did a whole bunch of world building behind the scenes, but his expectation was not that we would be engaging with all that. All just filtered in the fiction in a way where you go, oh, wow, that's really cool. And then it invites you to maybe ask about it in the gaming sense. If Tolkien was a GM, and man, that would be kind of cool. And you're like, hey man, what does that mean? Okay, assuming Gandalf didn't fall into the pit, so you get to ask him afterwards, or maybe you go to Galadriel. Because I could totally see this happening in a game. The Fellowship don't ask, but you get to Galadriel, and someone's like, raise their hand. What is it, Samwise? Yeah, I'd really like to know, Galadriel. What is the flame of Udun? And then she go, well, let me tell you about Autumno in the freezing north. And you're like, oh, okay, now that's pretty cool. Really cool. You know, but we're not, but, you know, Tolkien didn't force everybody to read through stop the story to then read a whole, to write, or have us read a whole book on Morgoth. Just there. Brian Smith says, yes, Samwise, you'd like to make a lore check? Yes. And then Terrence mentions the Tom Bombadillion. That would be excellent. Horga says Tolkien was also world building a hobby, and for books he was publishing, not for a game to play with other people. Yes, that's true, but I think my point stands. I mean, my point is, as an author, Tolkien did not subject everybody to the entirety of the Silmarillion to talk about Elbereth or Udun or this stuff. It was there in his background. It was there as background for him to create all these languages, to create all this stuff. But there's no expectation on Tolkien's behalf that we hunt down the meaning of Udun or Elbereth or any of that stuff. Right. And again, right, Silmarillion, all these books that we have now that inform our Tolkien legendarium were not published in there. It wasn't even like, well, they existed, he just didn't ask you to go read them. It's like they weren't out there. They did not exist. All we had is what was in the text. And that's kind of what I'm shooting at. Yes, he's writing a text, not playing a game, but my point stands in that you can do a lot with a little bit of flavor. Right. Now, again, you can argue, well, you got to that flavor because he wrote 200 pages of world building, and fair enough. But there was no expectation on his part that we read all that. That is, as Horga says, for himself to get to this part where he's got this very distilled clear world vision that he uses. Not that we have to all know it, but too often GMs get caught up in my players need to know. Oh, Jorge, I'm not. I was taking it as an argument. No worries there. Brian Smith is talking to Lore24. He probably did. He absolutely did. Or Lore, he Lore 14. No, that doesn't work. Lore 24. Was he writing the Lord of the Rings? No, he wasn't. So Lore 04 would have been too early. But he probably every other 4 from basically 24 to I guess he died in 73. So I guess he couldn't do Lore 74. But all good. All right, so that was Dungeon Master Masterclass. Then we got Brian Smith, who just put threw this gauntlet down of how Tamara gets a name, the god of time, time shrines, time clerics, ritual of reverie, the god of life and death, the shrine of life and death, life and death. See, this is more than I would do. And I'm not saying this to kind of shame Brian Smith. I mean, I think you said he was working with a whole bunch of stuff. But like this to me is like 4 days. Well, 1, 2, 3, yeah, like 4 days of Dungeon 20. And that's the other of Lore24, I should say. Take a day off, by the way. If you write a bunch, like you're Brian Smith, you got all this stuff. Now, granted, he said a lot of this stuff was kind of pre-made and just kind of rewriting and editing it. But if you get a whole bunch done in day whatever, take a break for a day or 2, right? You don't let it turn into like, well, I'm done. I mean, unless you are done. But feel free if you're like super productive on a day, like anything else, like going to the gym or anything else you do on a consistent basis, take a breather. I'll probably use weekends as breathers. I mean, it's always easier for me to do this stuff when I'm kind of at my computer, which is usually when I'm working or doing this. And then on the weekends when I'm not at my computer consistently, I find sometimes it can be difficult or I have to do them at weird times or whatever. So like maybe I'll take Sunday, Saturday and Sunday off. And then maybe Monday or Friday and Monday, maybe I'll try to do like, hey, I'll do a little bit extra because I'm not working on the weekend days kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like gods, it's kind of probably good to get them out of the way now because they could be long, right? And you want to say so much about these gods that it can really be a lot. I forgot that I have a Lore24 tag here so I can see all these. Oh yeah, and this was Explorer, who hasn't really started, but he's gonna be starting, hopefully, on his Blood of the Orishas, which is a really cool name. Akoni, I should say, Blood of the Orishas. We got that's my thing. There's Terrence's thread. I don't know, Terrence, where did you find this troll picture? Because I don't know, that pose that troll is rocking. I mean, I'm just glad they kept it family friendly there in the center. But man, he is straddling that rock. But I love the idea of trolls. This is really clever. I really enjoyed this read about the different. Basically, it's all the different sentient or sapient species, and them all trying to basically. I don't know. I almost picture like they're arguing, but all putting forth their arguments is why they're the firstborn, right? There is no like in Tolkien and kind of related stuff where the elves are the firstborn or something like that. Like here, it's kind of nobody knows, so everyone's kind of making their case, and the idea that the trolls, yeah, Ty says pay the toll. Yeah, this guy's spreading his legs like that, asking about paying the toll. Definitely think I'm going to be going around that bad guy. But then this concept that maybe it's actually the trolls because trolls are in all the lore from basically from myth all the way to the present, and maybe they've got a case for being the most longest lived or firstborn, so to speak. That's great. What site am I looking at? Jorge says, this is my forums. I will put it into the chat. My own. You're welcome to hop over there. This is where a few of us are putting together our Lore24 things and posting them. I'll flash it. It's in the show notes if you're on If you're on the tubes, in the show notes. You know what? I put it in Discord, but not in, or not Discord. I put it on Twitch, but not YouTube. So I'll stick it in the YouTube chats as well. There that goes. There we go. It's we're posting stuff, so you're welcome to come in. I do need to, just if you create an account, I need to approve you manually. Other than that, you can come in. You can create your own Lore24 thread. I'll link to it in the mega thread. And it's just kind of fun. I might try to read. I mean, I'm just kind of just showing what folks are doing so far. Maybe I'll do some reading of them at some point. Maybe when I do a weekly kind of thing, we can see what people are doing. But I don't want to pressure people, right? Because if some people are going to fall off, maybe it'll be me who falls off. I don't know. So I don't want people to feel. I want people to not feel like they're on some kind of what's the word? I just don't want to feel any pressure. Right? I want people to be doing it, having fun, doing it, not, like I said, not feeling pressure, not feeling like I'm the teacher that's going to call you out because you haven't updated your Lore24 thread. So I don't want to get too much into it, but I did want to just kind of celebrate people starting, just because you can't finish something if you don't start it. And even if you don't get that far, even if you just do it for a few days or a week or a month, you'll still end up with more. You'll still end up with something that you didn't have before. And I just wanted to be like, yeah, we're doing it. So maybe I'll just stick to, I don't know, doing mines. And then where's the mega thread here? There, no, that's mine again. Where is it? There it is. Look to the top. And if you want that, the prompt, I'll throw this prompt somewhere else also. But we got a thing, seer or medium, roseate, and victorious. What do you guys folks got going on before we call it a stream? I don't think I have anything else to Lore24 about. If you guys have any resources, also shoot them over. I'll add them to the thread. I don't have too much. My prompt generator's there. The stuff's there. If you got more stuff, send it. I haven't seen too much. I'm really going to be curious. I feel like Dungeon23, maybe because there's only kind of one of them, really had a really powerful push thrust to it. There's a lot of momentum starting the year with like Dungeon23. But I think because now there's been, like I said, I've seen scattered bits of people using other hashtags and other things for kind of other. What is going on up here? Oh, Ty the DM. All right, we got some folks. All right, I am approving. Oh, oops, sorry about that. I won't do another one because I realize it's showing emails. Show emails. I'll scrub that, but approved. I just feel like with Lore24, I guess with this 24 year, things are more scattered because, like I said, people are doing different things. People are doing different things. So I'd like to it would be good to get a gathering of like, here are the other things people are doing. I just don't know where that would be. I'd have to kind of find them. Like I said, I think there's like a Galaxy 24, if that suits you better. I'd like to get some other ones and post them just to say, hey, because there was Dungeon 23. I think there was a Hex 23. I think somebody came up with, but I felt like they were all like really, I don't know. I felt like there was more of a united kind of community thing around Dungeon 23, which I think now it's a little bit more fractured. But hopefully we can get that sorted. I'd just like to know more about some of the other ones people are doing so I can highlight them and kind of maybe see what stuff might work and so on and so forth. Magnus needs to get their next session scheduled. Always a good idea. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing my game. The game I'm playing in is tomorrow. And that should be, well, I missed the session. So I missed the between Christmas and New Year's session. And that one, theoretically, no one said what's happened, but it was going to be, it should have been pretty epic. So I'll close with this kind of teaser because I don't know I'm going to have to find out tomorrow what's happened. But there's I don't even want to call it. There's been what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? A conclave, I guess, of kind of evil high priest types. Going to pick a new leader. We sent the group sort of sent this NPC thief roguish type to go in and eavesdrop and kind of hear what's going on. We're not friendly with these evil high priest types, but we're in their kind of their sort of city. I guess it is kind of their city. We're kind of hiding out, but we're trying to kind of close the loop on something. This is all an attempt to try to get some answers to things before we take some downtime. And I don't particularly, but the other characters, not my character, but the other characters kind of need and really should be taking some downtime, but they keep kind of putting it off to try to sort things out. And so it kind of came to a head when they just wanted to kind of dot the I on what's going on with these evil high priest types. They sent in this NPC and she was captured. So the session before the winter break, they wanted to rescue her, and there were different options because apparently they were going to put her on a boat and take her out and sacrifice her to some dragon turtle that's offshore. We're all on these islands, offshore in the islands. We used I think it was some communing to figure out that dragon turtle is powerful, and there are essentially powerful reasons why it's going to stay in the area where it is. It's not going anywhere. And I had some ideas like, well, maybe she gets on the boat, we can cause the boat to sink in the bay or something, kind of fish her out, get out. Okay, all these things kind of came and went, but they didn't go for that plan, or we collectively didn't go for my suggestion. The other suggestion that came up was that we were all going to get I forget which spell it was, maybe polymorph other, because we have a couple of magic users who have the spell polymorph other, turn us all into dragons, and then essentially assault the tower where she's being held, kind of get onto the sort of the roof of the tower, and there's a trapdoor on the roof. Then she's being held. I think also through the communing that she's being held on the top floor. We can kind of get in. So we were all going as dragons. I think I was going as maybe I was going as a red dragon or a black dragon. I don't remember what color I was going as. In any case, there was a bunch of dragons going up, and it was we're just gonna see. Who knows what's gonna happen. I know Daniel Bandits Keep is running the game, and I remember him. We were talking after the session about kind of like his not like he wasn't giving anything away, but just kind of his idea of like what's gonna happen when in the middle of this night, basically these 3 or 4 just adult dragons of various colors are going to descend out of nowhere onto this tower. And he was saying that this is not something they would have expected. This is not something that these evil high priests are going to have had on there. No, what did they say? Like they didn't have this on their bingo card. The 3 or 4 various dragons are going to basically pop out of nowhere in the middle of the night and just blast this tower and the surrounding bits. So we felt that there was a pretty good chance, that it could be carried out. That'd be pretty successful because it's like no one's expecting it. Dragons are very strong, right? And we were, because it's not polymorph self, it's polymorph others. So I think we pretty much get all the dragon stats and everything, basically, and including breath attacks and all that for like an hour or something. I don't remember how long it lasts. Remember, he's using kind of OD&D style rules, so the spells can be really strong and last longer than you might be thinking. Don't think in terms of like 5th edition or even some like old school essentials or BX. Now, of course, the problem that I was foreseeing, or the hurdle was that, or the potential problem I was looking at was, well, they're all high level clerics, and these particular clerics, it has been known, have kind of broken the seal on sort of learning or memorizing, doing something with kind of magic user spells. So they're not just limited to your cleric spells. They might have some magic user spells up their sleeve, which of course means, for my personal, I'll say, is dispel magic, which you're flying at 75 feet and doing like a strafing run over the tower, and you get zapped with dispel magic. Could hurt. And granted, you get saves and everything, but they're high level clerics. These aren't slouches. And all it takes kind of is one of them to kind of think like, what the heck are these, like to hit that alarm of like, are these illusions or like, what's going on? Because these dragons, I don't know, like this doesn't, not something that happens every day. So I'll be curious to see, and I'm curious to see, one, just how it played out. And I'm also curious mechanically if there was anything, were there any rolls made? How did that work? I'll find out tomorrow. I don't know why I told that story now, but that'll be tomorrow's game. For now, I will let everybody go. Hopefully, you'll take part in this Lore24 or something. If you're taking part in a different 24 year of 24 challenge, let me know because I'd like to get more information on some of these other ones, link to them, that sort of thing. I'm gonna do weekly prompts for those who want them. Hey, Catherine, yep, just in time for me to close the books. I will do weekly prompts and post them here, and maybe I'll put them on YouTube or something else. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll do maybe what I'll do is I'll do like a weekly where I'll go through kind of what I did for the week, and then we'll do the prompt and that kind of thing. Maybe that'll be something to do, but hopefully myself and others will kind of keep it going, at least up to a point that you kind of get what you want out of it. I will be amazed if I make it all the way through a year. It'd be awesome if I did. I don't want to give up before I've begun to fight, sort of thing. But we'll see. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing on stream. Should be back. Well, no, tomorrow's streaming might be tricky. I might not be able to stream tomorrow. I have to go into town early. It's game night, so I got to go into town anyway. But I also have to do business in town, so I got to kind of see if I stream tomorrow, it might be like something early. Like you might see me at 10 a.m. Eastern to stream. So if I get it off, if I get a stream off tomorrow at all, it'll probably be some wackadoo time like that. But then Friday should be, I think, back to normal. Oh, the Dungeon Minister. Yep. Just in time for the end. The beginning of the end, the end of the beginning. There will be more. There will be blood. There will be Lore24. And just happy New Year, everybody. And see you around. With that, game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.